Hey everybody, hope you're doing good. We're continuing our book review and discussion of this really interesting book on Thomas Jefferson. And it's written by a very good writer, and he includes lots of dates for us, makes it very approachable in an interesting way. Um, a lot of people criticize the founding fathers without really trying to get to know them, and a lot of political activists are actually very underread. So while you're washing the dishes, while you're cooking dinner, you can hear me nerd out and you can learn something more than them. Okay, we're on page 134. With the British troops moving toward Richmond on Friday, January 5th, 1781, Robert Hemmings and James Hemmings drove Patty and the rest of the Jefferson family to safety at a piece of property Jefferson owned on Fine Creek, west of the capital. All right. At about 1 o'clock on the afternoon of January 5th, the British arrived at Richmond, formed a line, and launched cannon fire into the city. Now, a lot of people, they really don't give enough credit on the Democrat side to the Founding Fathers. The universities, they're teaching you to hate them. And I even took a class where the teacher was incredibly lazy and really undersold the brilliance of this time period. So you could be paying for a nice class and have a terrible, terrible teacher, but reading these books will help give you an accurate, better understanding of what it means to be an American and what they suffered for, because here, the troops of the British causing problems were a huge thing, right? Again, to only focus on slavery in America and to not look at any other factor, you're crippling yourself in your knowledge. Okay. One shot took off the top of a butcher's house near Jefferson's Shockoe Hill quarters. According to Isaac Granger Jefferson, in 10 minutes not a white man was to be seen in Richmond. They ran hard as they could to a camp of American soldiers on Bacon's Quarter branch in northern Richmond. It was chaos. The British was dressed in red. Now, it's interesting. So, the terror people, the British, wore red. Today, they are black bloc Antifa militants marching in the street. How the colors change, right? Isaac Granger Jefferson recalled he saw them marching. Thomas Jefferson had left the governor's residence to avoid capture and spent the hours of invasion circling Richmond in efforts to secure supplies and to rendezvous with American officers. He was right to leave the center of the action. The British had brought along handcuffs in expectation of arresting the author of the Declaration of Independence. Reaching the house on Shockoe Hill, a British officer asked where Jefferson was. "He's gone to the mountains," said George Granger, Isaac's father, protecting the master. Wow, George Granger. I don't remember that. Where the heck is Shockoe Hill? "Where is the keys to the house?" the officer asked. In Isaac's recollection, Isaac's father handed over the keys. "Where's the silver?" the officer asked. Now that's scary. Where's the silver? Now, in American history, I think it was Reagan who did, when we left the gold standard, the United States confiscated gold. You had to hand in your gold. That blows my mind that people could do that. And what's super creepy, if an officer is like, "Where is the silver?" That's why it's very dangerous, too, to not have any cash in circulation. I know this is a precious metal, but it's creepy how we're all going to the digital world and literally giving your money up to a digital dimension and not having physical things that you can trade with real people is a quick way for a government to clearly take over you and have you by the reins, right? Big reason why credit card debt is a form of handcuffs. You gotta be careful what you spend your money on. But it's creepy. Creepy. "It was all sent up to the mountains," George Granger said. "It was a lie." As Isaac recalled it, his father had put all the silver about the house in a bed tick and hid it under a bed in the kitchen and saved it too. So, indeed, keeping your belongings safe. But back then, if you had an intruder, you could definitely take him out. Today, you could go to jail for defending yourself. I mean, if somebody says, you did this, you did that, and if it's a left-wing group attacking you or doing something, you could not even have a right to defend yourself. It's pretty scary. I feel like sometimes we're going backwards. It's just too crazy that the lack of respect for property rights, because they could, these British officers, they didn't have any, no property rights for the colonists. They're like, we're gonna go here, we're gonna do that, and that's why there was such an explosion of people saying no, and that's part of what gave birth to the revolution, right? You're not coming in our homes. We don't want your standing army troops. We want freedom of speech. We want private property. All those good things, right? And now you see people slowly inching away from that, and people not respecting private property. I mean, in just a couple days ago, there was riots where people were driving on people's lawns. I've seen videos where rioters were jumping on people's houses, right? It's crazy. And then Twitter allows those people to network, to organize those mass chaos campaigns. But if I criticize a stripper gangster rapper who encourages drug use, I'll get suspended. So that's where we're at. Imagine if Twitter existed back then for the founding fathers. It would have been horrible. Benedict Arnold soon removed himself back to the coast. Oh, Benedict Arnold! The British, meanwhile, seized a large number of Jefferson's slaves. So the British... Oh, dang it. Oh, here it is. So the British wanted to snatch up people too. I wonder what they would have done with all of them. Whether they send them to Britain, or simply make them work for a new master. Including Isaac Granger Jefferson. As they marched out of Richmond, they heard the sounds of war. One blast, Isaac Granger Jefferson recalled, was like an earthquake. I bet if it was those old-fashioned cannons, man, they went... Would it have made a difference to the defense of Richmond if the call for militia had gone out earlier? Writing from Richmond a month after the invasion, Jefferson himself believed that men of enterprise and firmness would have been able to capture Arnold. On his march to and from this place, presumably then an activated militia would have been of military value. So, again, the militia aspect, again here, would have, these contending would have had military value. Understanding the history and aid of militias towards freeing America from tyranny always gets overlooked now. And if you say militia, people make that synonymous with terrorists. Which is crazy because the people rioting are telling you defund the police. Others say abolish the police, abolish prisons. I've seen abolish the Senate. They talk about dismantling everything and having community organizers and community counselors who are not armed to deal with some of the most violent people in our nation. I mean, we have ghettos. There's so much violence. I mean, there's a reason why people call cops is because they don't want to be placed in danger. It's really crazy. And if you have a militia, there's been some really interesting militias of every race that do really cool demonstrations where they just simply stand there and do like a unified march. It's really a beautiful thing when it's done peacefully and rightly. I don't mind it. I don't get intimidated. I don't get nervous when I see a group of militiamen walking around and they're all together. What I don't like is rioters who are throwing Molotov cocktails and lighting things on fire and, spray painting churches, tearing down statues of saints, and doing other things like that. That, to me, freaks me more out than a militia. But, again, because we're going the inverse route, we're going down the dark path, evil is good and good is evil. So, there's that. But, again, don't think of the militia and the 2020 sense. The CNN version is not a clear, accurate picture. Those are fearmongers, propagandists. They want ad revenue, they want clicks, they want your eyeballs. The militias helped birth America, and it was a very unique aspect. If the communists can use guerrilla warfare, and that can be shown in glowing, endorsements by blue checks on Twitter, I don't see why militias should be seen as something automatically evil. Judge each militia based on their behavior. But when the cops don't show up, or the cops are ordered to stand down, and you don't have your Second Amendment, and there's a rioting mob chucking cocktails, smashing cars, and threatening to burn your house down, you're going to be thankful for a militia that stops looting, that defends businesses and keeps order. This is a fact. I think this is where we're going to have the Civil War will come up, though. Is when people are afraid and cops are told to stand down by activist mayors, we're going to see some really sad things. It's very sad. Very sad. Jefferson had plenty of strength in his soul, but on this occasion he misjudged the moment. By waiting, Jefferson had made a common political mistake. He had followed the people rather than led them. Look at that. Following the people instead of leading them. Many of the Virginians who did the actual fighting in militias were unhappy and skeptical about the elite that Jefferson embodied and represented. Interesting. I didn't expect to hear that. The culture of Virginia was not conducive to rapid military deployment in the best of times. Now in wartime, militias were even more difficult to muster. Oh. I thought they would have been more easier at that time. You learn something new every day.